All right, hello everybody. I am here in my room at Lake Louise. I'm here for prayer retreat, and I brought my video equipment this week because often I find it helpful to have things either written down or recorded so that I can look back and reflect on the things that God is doing and the things that God is teaching me. And I had originally intended that I would be sitting in front of a beautiful lake behind me, but it's late in the day, and so in order for you to see the beautiful lake behind me, you would have not been able to see my beautiful face. And so I figured that if you had a choice between the two, you would probably choose my face. So hopefully maybe tomorrow you'll see the lake, maybe you'll just see me, maybe you'll see nothing, I don't know. This is what it is for today. All right. So today in our session, we were talking about joy, and the two things that really stood out to me were, the first one was that Jesus was joyful, and I don't think that that's a way that I have ever viewed Jesus. It makes sense to me, but I had just never thought about it. So I really enjoyed that. The other thing that really stood out to me was we were talking about John chapter 15, where Jesus says that he is the vine and we are the branches and that we need to abide in him. And I had always thought of that passage as abiding in him for strength, for growth, for peace, for things like that. But today we learned about how that also includes abiding in him to receive joy, his joy, and that if we are growing in our faith, a result of that should be joy that comes from Christ. And so if we're not experiencing joy, that can show us that there's a problem. And let me check, what time is it? So like 2 hours after this really great session, I was struck by this overwhelming loneliness. I felt alone and isolated, and I saw people that I knew. I walked around the hotel for like 15 minutes and waved at people I knew, but just felt like I couldn't go up to them and talk to them because they were busy and they had better people to talk to, and it was just a really awful feeling. And I was like, well, the only thing to do is to go back to my room and wallow in this and like curl up and never see anybody again. And thankfully, quickly, I realized that that was not from Jesus, that that was an attack from the enemy, and that this moment where I wasn't feeling joy, I needed to ask Jesus for joy. And I needed to ask him for an image of how he saw me instead of how I was seeing myself. And it was cool as I reflected, because like a year ago, prayer retreat last year, I felt that exact same loneliness. I remember walking around the hotel, and I was looking for people that I knew, but if I'm honest, I wasn't looking that hard, because again, I felt like I didn't measure up, and I felt that way for hours until I went to bed feeling that way. And so to compare those two experiences where I felt the exact same thing, but this year I was able to acknowledge that that wasn't from Jesus and that wasn't a way that I should continue to feel. And so I gave it to Jesus and asked him for his joy, and asked him for a new image of who I actually am. And so I want to encourage you in that today. If you're feeling lonely or isolated or like nobody cares or that you don't measure up, that's not from Jesus. He cares more than anybody ever could. If you're watching this, I care about you too. But when you're feeling that, give it to Jesus and ask him for joy, because his joy will sustain us. And so that's what I've been thinking about today. I am about to go for supper with people that love me, and so I am so thankful for God's joy and so excited to learn more about who Jesus is tomorrow. So I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I will see you later.